This is Stare Down the Bull. I'm your host, Susan Hunt. Around here, we tackle the hard stuff: how to lead with clarity, leveraging AI, and turn strategy into real results. My guest today brings a powerful perspective on how to do exactly that. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stare Down the Bull. I'm Susan Hunt. Today we have a special episode in where Steve Chambers is actually going to be the host, and I'm going to be interviewed for the first time on Stare Down the Bull.
It's a flipper.
Thanks for joining, Steve. I really appreciate you doing this.
No problem. This is fun. It's fun to put you on the spot and see how you sling the bull.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm going to turn it over to you so you can start the show.
Okay, that sounds great. First of all, I'm going to give a little preamble because I've worked with you I've known you for over almost 25 years, and I've worked with you closely for maybe 15 of those years. And you are an extremely unique personality in the executive ranks. You do things differently. In a world where we're all cats, you're kind of a Siamese. You're just different. So I'm going to start off not by saying, tell us about your career, although we'll get there. I'm going to start off by asking you, do you know how different you are? Do you know how you show up? Do you get a sense of it having a different style, a different type of effectiveness than other executives with whom you've worked? How does that sound to you? How does that feel?
I definitely feel different than the executives that I work with in some sense, and then very much exactly the same in another sense. Like, I feel less trained professionally and less interested in being professional than most people.
Yeah, just to be clear, you are very professional.
Well, I mean, I feel, I don't know, it may go back to being one of 6 kids where it's like, you show up on time for dinner or you don't eat that night kind of thing, which was what it was like. So I feel that it's very important to have my voice heard. And that means even if it means ruffling some feathers or forcing the issue a little bit, because that's sort of how my family is. So that is how I came along in business. And it is a little bit different. I think that a lot of executives really tried to fit a certain mold. And I feel in some cases that can be really ineffective. And I'm always about the outcome of whatever I'm doing. It's not about the activities that I do to get the outcome. It's about the outcome. So how do we get to the outcome from point A to point B to really get to where we all want to be? So that's how I think about it.
You're a very outcome-oriented, results-oriented executive. I will say, and still underscore, you do things a little bit differently. And when you and I have worked together, I felt that you've had defining moments where in a major negotiation, in a major meeting, you tend to say the thing people are thinking, but maybe are afraid to say. Take me way back. Early in your career, you carried the bag, you were in sales, and extraordinarily high achieving sales rep. Tell me about your first memory of being that person in a room who said, hey, that emperor's naked, or raised something that was an inconvenient truth for leadership, but yet very on point for the business. Does anything come to mind?
I feel like I've always been that way. So I don't feel like there was a defining moment where I just radically changed in business. There was a defining moment where I radically changed as a child because I actually, believe it or not, was really shy and like to just kind of meld in with everything else. And at some point as a child, I realized that wasn't really working. Like, I wasn't getting anything that I wanted by doing that. So I flipped a switch at some point and just started, I kind of thought, well, what if I just say whatever I'm really thinking? And what if I say what I think is the thing that needs to be said at the moment? What would happen then? It's a little George Costanza in a child's body. Like, why don't I do the opposite of everything that I have been doing? Because what I've been doing is not getting me what I want. So I think that it started really, really early on in my teen year kind of jobs. And it just kind of grew as I grew as a rep and a person. I also was around very aggressive salespeople. I mean, very aggressive salespeople at Motorola. at a very early age. Like these people were wild. The first people that sold cellular in the country were at Motorola in Chicago in the early 80s. It was the first system to go on the air. I was there with a bunch of other very aggressive salespeople in the pre-sale, and I learned that the aggressive guys were really making all of the money. And I was still I was unsure still because I hadn't been a salesperson that long, and I wasn't sure how to be aggressive or even how to, like motivate myself to do a lot of work like they were doing. Like they were going on 10 appointments a day. To me, that seemed insane, but they were making a ton of money in those early years. And it was because they were mature. They had gone through a lot in their career already. They recognized the moment for what it was, and they were going to capitalize on it. So I saw that. I was exposed to that at Motorola, and it kind of shifted how I think and how I work and how I act. They were outrageous to a certain degree. Like they were in HR all the time. It was the go-go 80s. So you can imagine what was going on there at Motorola. But and they were the tech company of the time. Motorola was the tech company in globally at the time. So it was really a very lucky job that I got, and it kind of started me off on not only how I interacted with people going forward, but also it started me on my tech journey.
You know, I agree with that. You are, as I've experienced you professionally, aggressive in an assertive way, not an overly aggressive way, in an assertive way, very truthful. It's never, you're not that person in a meeting where you're wondering if what they say and what they will do are two different things, which in other words is a sense of integrity when actions meet words. And you have very high sense of integrity. But beyond being coin driven, which you certainly were, and that's a huge motivator for most of us who cut our teeth in
Yeah.
sales. And besides being very truthful, which I think engendered a very special set of relationship dynamics with your customers, I want to talk about the relationships you managed to strike because you have a habit of reaching people that other people in your organization think are unreachable. Executives at high levels, executives who won't take meetings. I saw it very much at Verizon. I've seen it a lot. You're kind of that. You're not to the manner born, but you really have a way of building personal relationships with people in high positions of authority and power. Where did that come from, and how do you do it?
So I do it because I honestly believe we're all equal. I don't really care what your position is. If I have something, first of all, I don't reach out to people unless I have something that is beneficial to them. So that's the first thing. I've built a reputation on that if there's a reason I'm contacting you, it's because there's something that's going to be good for you and for me, or me, whatever company I'm working for in the end. I don't just randomly reach out to people and say, hey, I want to talk to you about something that has literally no benefit to you and you have no interest in even discussing it. There's a reason that they would want to talk to me. And the reason is I have a product that can, drive a big ROI, or I have an idea or a contact that might be really useful to them. I like to connect people, and people know that about me. So if I say, hey, I think that I sense that there might be something that you would gain from this relationship, both of you, I want to introduce you. People know that there's probably something there. Occasionally there's not. I'm not 100%. I screw up. I've presented stuff to very high level people that went really flat on more than a couple of occasions. But I would say the bulk of what I do is beneficial to them. That's why they take the meetings. Um, and while I respect their position and respect what they do, I think that I also have value in what I do, and I do what I do very well. So that's the way I think about it. And that's why I'm not afraid to reach out to those people. I mean, really, the only thing they can say is no, and that's
That's
fine.
the
I'll just
thing.
move on to somebody else.
That's the thing. There's an absence of fear that's not arrogant and never arrogant, but that makes you very able to reach people who are thought to be unreachable. But after you do, you also tend to make very tight relationships with those people. I've seen you on first name basis, people calling you up to ask you your opinions on things unrelated to business. that also is quite a gift. It's quite a relational gift. And you bring it to your organizations as you manage down. And I've seen you bring it to your customer relationships, your corporate relationships. You really build relationships to last. So I'm going to take us sideways for a second because there's also another thing I've seen you do. You don't like bullies. And I've seen you find them. Yeah, I don't know how they kind of pop up around you. Talk for a second about the corporate bully and talk a little bit about how you feel about them. And also, what's your strategy for managing them so they get the hell out of your way?
That's a hard question. There are a lot of corporate bullies, and they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and they are in a lot of different departments. And I kind of look at them as the people that want to stop other people from doing their jobs. Um, and again, I'm always thinking in terms of the outcome and what are the barriers to that outcome. Bullies are generally barriers to whatever outcome somebody in my organization or myself or even a peer is looking to accomplish, right? And I think the best way to deal with bullies is just to call them out and call them out in not a quiet way. Like, make it clear this person's a bully. They're trying to stop us from getting our job done. You need to step in as their manager. You need to step in as the president. You need to step in as blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, this, and this is not going to happen. And typically, whenever you call somebody out like that, what they want to do is they want to never be involved with you again. So that clears the way to not only that solving that particular problem, but they'll never be a problem to you again. And if they do become a problem to you again and it's a game, well, then that's a whole nother level of ways to deal with them. But typically 9 out of 10 times they'll get out of the way and they'll stay out of your way because they know that they will be called out in what is seemingly a very public manner in front of people that they don't want to be called out in front of.
Has anyone ever called you a bully? I don't think you are, but I'm curious.
Yes. Yes, I have been called a bully, mostly by bullies. I have been called out as a bully, and I have had to really reflect on my behavior when that happens, because if I've gone too hard on somebody for whatever reason, I really want to take a look at that, and I really want to adjust my behavior because I don't ever want to be a bully. And I'm always for the underdog. In fact, my managers would complain to me about giving people too many chances. And I'd be like, well, they have this characteristic and this stuff going on in their life and this really positive thing about them. So I think we should give them another chance for X. And I've been called out by my managers for that more than a few times. And I've been wrong about people too, but mostly giving somebody that deserves a chance results in a lot of loyalty, a lot of hard work, and really they're driven to be successful because they want to prove other people wrong. So I've been 9 out of 10 times I've been not surprised. I've been given what I thought would happen if I gave a person a chance. There's very few that let you down.
As a leader, I've seen very few leaders in my lifetime who engender and inspire the type of loyalty you do with your team. And it's not just longevity. It's not just the same relationships recycled through different companies. You happen to find people and nurture them, and they in turn are incredibly loyal to you and kind of perpetuate your focus on outcomes through a variety of corporate environments. I want to talk about you as a leader and how you do that, because that is a precious skill, very hard. I haven't seen many people do it the way you do. What are the elements of leadership that foster that loyalty among your team members, even if you've just met them versus those you've known for a while?
I'm going to give a call out to somebody's name who you probably have never heard. His name is Colonel Peter Egan. Colonel Peter Egan, I worked for at a company called Wheels. Wheels was a fleet company in Chicago, privately owned, did billions of dollars in sales without any marketing at all, and had about 8 salespeople. And Jim Frank, who was the CEO of that company, thought in terms of forever customers, forever employees, forever, forever, forever. And it permeated through the entire organization in everything that they did, which basically just resulted in do the next right thing. Do the next right thing for your employee, do the next right thing for your customer, and they will be your customer forever. Colonel Peter Egan was my boss, and he was incredible at creating relationships, keeping relationships, thriving, like just taught me everything about that, and also taught me everything about selling to enterprise in that manner. Those are the people, that company is the reason that I was able to sell an enterprise the way that I am. I was able to think strategically. When you only have 8 people and no marketing, you're strategic and you're thinking long-term relationships. I mean, they had customers like American Health was like a 40-year customer of theirs. I mean, they had crazy long customers, and they were very, very hard to compete with in a lot of areas because of the way that they treated their customers and their employees. So I think the really important components of longevity, and you probably should ask some of my employees, they probably would give you a totally different answer. One, I always had their back. So if somebody was, saying garbage about them or trying to do something wrong, I would find a way to make sure that the record was corrected every single time. I'd never leave any of that stuff hanging. If they were wrong, I would tell them that too. Like I would tell them they have to fess up to it. I also made sure that they were able to do their job, meaning I would give them a job. I would expect them to do it. And if they didn't, I was honestly surprised because, here's your job, go do it. Let me know if you have any problems, if I can do anything to help. And if you don't do it, I need to know why you're not doing it. And I'm actually really shocked that it's not getting done. That right there, trusting them to do the work that they were hired to do rather than micromanaging, which I think we can both agree I'm not a micromanager. I hate everything about that idea. That gave people a lot of power. It gave them a lot of influence. It gave them a lot of feeling of respect from me and the organization. And I think people want to work for people that respect them. And we also had a lot of fun. We always had a lot of fun, like always. And most of these people have followed me around from one job to another. Sometimes they made money. Sometimes it was, not great, but they have followed me, and I still, know what their grandchildren's names are. I still know what's going on with them personally, most of them. And it's the same kind of thing for my close customers as well. You just kind of know them, you respect them, you treat them with respect. It goes a long way in sales.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that about Colonel Egan, because it made something fall into place. My experience of you is that you build strong microcultures in a larger corporate culture. And you've worked at some very, very large companies, Salesforce, LivePerson, et cetera. So you understand what it's like to work in a highly diversified, very decentralized, in some cases, very hierarchical organization, where it is important to impose your own managerial ethos and leadership, et cetera, in the context of the larger organization. I get where you got the roots of that. On a lighter note, one thing I love about you is your fearlessness carries you in a lot of interesting directions. You founded a company, Surge Consulting, as the CEO founder. And as part of that, you're also founding this podcast called Stare Down the Bull. So I have 2 questions. The first is, who is the bull? And the second is, what's unique about this podcast? Well, who do you hope to serve, and what voice are you elevating that you think is under-elevated today? Who's the bull?
I'm the bull, for sure.
I didn't know that. Is that true? All right.
That's true. I'm the bull. My father used to say to me, like, I don't know, 3 times a week, you're like a bull in a china shop, because even as a child, I was always trying to move the ball forward on whatever thing I was working on. And I would do it in what appeared to others to be somewhat reckless. It wasn't really reckless, but it was aggressive. So he would be like, you're a bull in a bull in a china shop. And that translated to a couple of my partners and some of my friends saying, "You're bulling it, Susan. You're bulling it." Whenever they see me do something that is just, whatever it is, it could be the littlest thing, but I'm like, somehow pushing a square peg into a round hole, and they'll say, "You're bulling it." And then I was really impacted. I don't know if you remember the little girl that was staring, the metal statue that was staring at the bull on Wall Street 5 or 6 years back. I was really impacted by that because I thought, if that little girl can stare down a bull, I certainly can stare down a number of bulls. So that's where the name came from. And I actually started using it as on my handles on a couple of socials. And now this is Stare Down the Bull. So it's not that I'm going to get people on here and harass them, although I might. It depends on which direction this goes.
Back off.
Right. But right now, and it's a little bit of an ethos to how I work. And you spoke about it in that I'm not somebody that you should come to in any business. And I don't care if you're an executive or you're somebody up here or somebody that works for me and try to bullshit me because I have really good antennas up about that. So, it's best if you're just honest with me and tell me what's going on and cut to the chase. Give me the bottom line up front instead of try to bullshit me for 20 minutes and then give me the bad news after 20 minutes. So that's always been the way that I manage people, and they know that about me. I'm like, just tell me what you want. That's all I want to know is just tell me what you want up front, and then we'll work on it from there, kind of thing. So, I guess I have a long history of low tolerance for bull. So that's where the name comes from. It's not to scare anybody, but I think it allows us to go in a lot of different directions with the podcast, which I like.
And for whom is this podcast? What's different and unique about it? What's your vision here?
My vision is that I have so many people that I have worked with that have incredible stories for the last 25 years. I find many of them are in AI, many of them are in speech recognition. Early years of AI have this incredible knowledge, are able to kind of separate the bull from the truth in AI, which I think is a really topical thing right now. We
A
have
lot of claims out there.
a lot of claims, a lot of confusion. It's confusing executives. It's confusing people that are thinking of selling it. So I think that this podcast could be used for really trying to understand a number of different things. And I also love the journeys that people have been on, like the last 10 years since they've sort of left Nuance or they've left their company and started new companies. So I have an incredible group of people that have really interesting stories and perspectives like you, um, in this space, in the tech space, in the AI space, in the speech space. So I think that it's going to be really valuable to people to kind of listen to what people have to say about this space and where it's going. And I'm sure that the podcast will evolve as time goes on. But that's how I'm starting it out right now. And we're launching officially November 1st with the podcast. I have a great lineup of people that have done really, really interesting things that are from the industry. And I've got a long list of other people that I want to interview.
Nice. What's the biggest misconception people might have of you when they meet you as they get to know you before they really get to know you?
Probably that I'm highly educated. Honestly,
Okay.
because I'm not. Only because I spend most of my time with PhDs and have for years and years and years. And my two best friends are PhDs. As you know, you're one of them. I would say that's probably the biggest misconception. Yeah.
That's interesting because, you might not even know this, but you're often described in environments in which you work as incredibly shrewd. This great, it's like a purposeful intellect. It's a get things done. It's incisive. It's sharp. And I think this audience has gotten to know you today, the way you grew up, the get at the table to get the food, the one of many kids, the Chicago, a little bit of a tough environment. The idea that your first boss fostered a culture, was a militaristic guy who believed in a philosophy of long-term relationships that you never see anymore. I mean, everyone talks about it. SAS was supposed to have developed companies focused on renewals and annual satisfaction, and it did. It moved the ball. But a commitment towards lifetime relationships as an ethos and no marketing company as your origin story is amazing. and then going into Motorola. And I mean, I think about that industry and those aggressive people like 30 gulls on a French fry, everyone's just
It's
diving and
exactly what it was.
fighting for their own share. So your personality and your background are very congruent. Your leadership style, your forcefulness. There is an elephant in the room a little bit. You and I we're contemporaries age-wise. We went through Me Too. You've been a woman, and there've been tremendous changes in women in leadership in our lifetime. I never really thought of that issue as it related to you helping or hindering. How have you thought of that issue as it's related to you? Being a woman executive, having that set of personality attributes and leadership styles, the vision you have. Talk a little bit about the relationship between being a woman in those environments and how it has or helped or maybe has not helped at various times.
I mean, it's been a potpourri of different things at different times through my career, obviously. When I worked for you, I didn't think about it at all because I sold all the women in Verizon were executives. I sold mostly to women. I worked with mostly women that drove the business at Nuance, you know that. I worked for you, so I didn't even think really discrimination was a problem until I left. And I was shocked to find out that it still was. I went to work for one company, which I won't mention the name, a very, very big software company. And I went in as a VP after I left Nuance. And we were broken up into like mid-Atlantic, New York metro, and like Northeast. And I did not know for 6 months until all of those groups came together for a conference. I started in like August. In January, we had a conference together with all of the VPs in the region. I was the only woman in the room. It was me with my blonde hair, my pink dress, and 50 guys in blue suits and brown shoes. And I was like, where are the women? I had no idea. I was the first woman vice president on the East Coast. And I had no clue. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked and horrified. I was horrified, actually, because I hadn't spent any time thinking about this for 15 years at Nuance. It wasn't a thing at Nuance, at least not in my life. I do, and I will continue to feel that it is my responsibility as a woman to make sure that women's voices are heard, especially in AI, because one of the big problems that we have right now in AI is most of it is developed by men, which means there is innate bias in AI that is going to be is detrimental already. And we have to think about that. Now, there are more and more women going into AI. I work with a company right now in my surge role that has 50% AI engineers, which I think is amazing.
50% female engineers?
50% female engineers. So we are seeing a lot more coming out of it. And that's due to work of amazing women like Melinda Gates, who's investing in women with all of her billions of dollars, and women like Judy Spitz, who left Verizon as CIO and started women and men in tech, but giving underserved people the opportunity to get into the AI space. And it's going to make an impact, but it's a long, long road. And honestly, we're worse off now than we were 20 years ago, as far as women in STEM. And that's unfortunate. That's,
what makes you say that?
The data. The data says it. Yeah, we're worse off. There are less of us going into STEM. There are less of us in STEM. Especially in the Northeast. I mean, the West Coast is pretty good. They have lots and lots of women in tech. The failing of this one company, I believe, was mainly because it's a West Coast company and they had tons of women in their headquarters in really important roles. And they didn't notice the East Coast was not like the other side of the country. And the reason for that, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, in New York and New Jersey, there's lots of places to go as a woman. You can go into finance, you can go into healthcare. I'm one of the only tech people at any party in New Jersey. Honest to God, like everybody thinks I'm weird because
that means
I'm in
the parties are pretty good, I'd imagine.
It's always healthcare, it's always government, it's always people from Wall Street, of course, where I live, um, and like a couple of tech people. So it is different in the Northeast. I think Boston even has more tech people just because of MIT and Harvard, and the tech folks that are coming out of both of those schools tend to maybe stay in Boston a little bit. So the tech scene is a little better. New York is picking up a bit, and it's certainly not biased against women, but I will continue to fight that fight until I die, because I have 3 daughters and I have a granddaughter, and equality is important to me. And I don't care what anybody says about that at this point. It's something that's going to need to be continued to address. I mean, we're being attacked right now by our president. And, I just think more now than ever, we need to stare down that ball for sure.
Well, on that note, I loved how you weaved back in the name into the stare down the bowl. I just want to say that for those people unfortunate enough not to know you professionally and personally, you're an extraordinarily effective person, and you're charismatic and have deep views on life. You've got a soul and an intellect. You're really the full package. And I also want to round off something that might not have been apparent on here. You are gifted relationally. It isn't, we got on a bit of a track of women in business, women in tech, which I think is super important as an issue. But you really forge relationships with people in power in ways that you said before. It's fearless. You don't pedestalize them. You treat them respectfully and always center on what they need and what you can do for them and how you can improve the quality of their leadership effectiveness. And I think that's what makes you so extraordinary, unique, and effective. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you for our partnership over all these years. And thank you for being a guest host on your own darn show.
Thank you for doing this, Steve. I really appreciate you joining and doing Stare Down the Bull as a host. So much.
Loved it. I didn't even realize you were the bull. I thought you were staring down other people who were kind of bullies. But anyway, we've come full circle.
Well, we can do that too. It's all encompasses. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Stare Down the Ball. If today's conversation sparked new ideas, share it with a colleague and keep the momentum going. The future belongs to leaders who act, so subscribe and join us again next week.